We're in a hybrid environment. If you think of pizza, a lot of our business is based on how much transaction we can get at the same time, or the highest volume. And our e-commerce platform is on the cloud, and that's something where all of our customer information reside in. And if you think of us managing about 60% of our transaction online, and everything that comes from online just filters down to our data center and dispatch to our stores based on the addresses. And our challenge there is always, how do we continue to secure our cloud environment? And that's where we concentrate a lot and using different security measures. And one of the big part for security for us is AI. We leverage AI in the back end to see, what are coming, what are the different bots, what are different variation that's coming, different abnormality based on and the different fingerprints throughout that. And we see that every day. If you look at our reports, you'll see where the attacks comes and where it stopped. And in that addition to that, you have to look at your internal people as well who have access to this data. What are they doing with the data when they're extracting the data? Who are they distributing this data to? Where are they keeping the data? So governance is a huge part of what we do. And on the on-prem part, which is more of a legacy system for us, where eventually we're trying to get to the cloud. But as you know, any legacy system, it takes forever to build a new system on top of that. So the backups and the governance that we have there, there's a lot of challenges that we're trying to maintain that system internally as well. And as the system is older, it tends to have more vulnerability within it. And how do you strategize with your backup? And the biggest problem today is ransomware. If ransomware, you get caught with ransomware, it cripples your entire business. And there's no guarantee that even if you pay that ransom, that unencrypted version of that data will work, because it's never made to encrypt your data. It's just made to encrypt, that's it. So those are some of the challenges that we're dealing with, and we're continuously working to safeguard that, to ensure that in an event of an exposure, or how do we deter an exposure and continue to use tools to protect our data.
So we need to find approaches to simplify the management and protection of our key data assets. Data warehousing solutions that allow for data virtualization, data vaulting, data aging, and integrated access management will be essential to stay on top of the insatiable appetite that organizations have for data. Leveraging edge-based solutions integrated with zero trust concepts will help when partnered with modernized platforms such as Snowflake, which bring virtualization strategies to assist in controlling the sprawl, as well as easier data acquisition and self-service solutions. So if we make it easier for our data consumers to get access to and leverage the data they need, we should be able to better control the sprawl and fragmentation that we've historically seen.
I think one of the most important things that we have observed is the behavior of the user is because of the lack of, whether it's a lack of trust in the solutions there, whether it's a lack of a solution where they can easily access the information, exchange the information. Basically, everything is around that ease of access and trust. So for us, it's a lot of change management. And as simple put, we have multiple, strategic initiatives around data for the next coming years. And part of it has been, how do we create that single source of data for our users so that they don't need to go to every other place, and they also trust the information they're seeing and trust saving their information in the platform, which is the system of record. Part of our strategy has been, how do we migrate all of this data to a more secure cloud-based storage? But at the same time, we don't want to take all the garbage with us. So it is part of that strategy to work, with the business to cleanse the data and bring the right information in, and at the same time, guide them through how to use the system of the record. When we are looking at, mastering our information, we have a lot of data points that come to us from external and internal. Again, ease of integration is important in that. topic for us. So if we are bringing data from external sources, and commercial real estate relies on data, and external data is very important to us. So how do we bring this data in a way that we can actually crunch it and trust it and store it in our own systems, so that we create better visibility? And as Michelle was saying, is like, what are the good insights and analytics that you can create so that the consumer sees the value right there and they're not distracted with other ways of doing things, which impacts that whole strategy around where do we save the data and how do we secure it, as well as the whole cybersecurity measures that we have in place, and we monitor and we audit what's going on to create preventive actions and corrective actions around data governance.
What I found interesting about this dialogue and the previous speakers is the mention of ease of access. When I think of access, I think of limiting access just to what you need to know. So limiting that. And a lot of organizations look at authenticating people, so letting you into the door, but they don't look at authorization, what you're able to do when you're in the door. I think Catherine mentioned governance, data flow, but also data classification. Many of our applications don't classify data, so it's really hard to then give you access if we don't classify the data that we're looking at in all of our applications and all of our systems. I think about privileged access. Privileged users usually get an elevated set of access, and we focus a lot on our on-prem, but do we really focus on cloud? Because when we think about the DevOps pipelines and they create identities all over the place every second, do we really think about what access they're able to use, what they're able to do with it? Is it privileged? What data do they get to see? So there's a lot to think about in this space. And then finally, what about our third parties? So we as an organization link to all these other organizations, and we're only as strong as our weakest link. And so if other organizations are not classifying their data and securing their data, then if they're breached or if there's an issue, then we become vulnerable to that as well. So lots to think about in this space.
For one, we got a budget for it, right? It's our data, it's our real estate, it's our surface, it's our intellectual property. So we've got to treat it that way. And as I think has been said, it's not about backup, it's about restoring, right? How do I get back to the information I need, whether it's a single file restore or whether it's, operational recovery or whether it's disaster recovery. So it's got to be a holistic discussion that you're talking about with your team. And you guys know that after 30 days, 90% of data isn't even touched. And after 90 days, the number even goes up from there. So I think, it's awareness about your data is your data. And, even the public cloud companies will say, hey, there's a disclaimer that says, you own your data, you need to protect it, make provisions of it, right? The cloud is cheap, it'll just cost you more. We've seen cyber resiliency be an addition. You guys know cybersecurity is about the network and perimeter. Cyber resiliency is saying, hey, how do we get our infrastructure or our processes, workflow, so that we can get back, from a ransomware attack rather than just protecting the network and perimeter. And there are strategies to do that, right? I mean, you've heard of things like snapshots, right? Immutable snapshots, things that aren't taking your critical data and taking a picture or a snap of that so that you can get back to that at any point in time. We have use cases where we've had 1,500 VMs restored in 70 minutes. So it is about those kind of things and positioning and putting your most critical assets in that kind of zero trust environment, but being able to restore it and test it. It's your information and your data.